All the latest now this Saturday night. Here's the ITV News.
We will never vote for him again. Some of the Prime Minister's own constituents hit back as allegations of lockdown parties at number 10 keep coming. And as the Conservatives see complaints rise, the Labour leader says one way or another, Boris Johnson must go.
It's now in the national interest that he goes, so it's very important now that the Tory party does what it needs to do and gets rid of him.
Also fighting in court to battle it out on court. Novak Djokovic's lawyers try again to keep him in Australia. Plus, the sonic boom of a massive volcanic eruption has sent tsunami waves across the entire Pacific. And 5 months ahead of time, Manchester City as good as seal another Premiership title.
This is ITV News with Lucy Watson.
Good evening. The clamour for the Prime Minister to step down is not dying down tonight as the scandal surrounding Downing Street parties during COVID lockdowns keeps on growing. Some of Boris Johnson's own constituents told us today they would never vote for him again. The Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer ramped up the rhetoric even more, saying it is in the national interest for Mr Johnson to quit or be thrown out. Our political correspondent David Wood has the latest now on the allegations and accusations refusing to go away.
Behind this door, the Prime Minister and his allies are fighting for his political survival, as the drip of party allegations here continue to knock the wind out of Boris Johnson's administration and his authority. Alistair Little has been a Tory councillor in the Midlands for 20 years. He's quit his party, angry at its leader and the apparent COVID rule-breaking under his watch.
He's apologised to the nation, he's apologised to every voter, but a very weak apology. Isn't it more important for a democracy for the elected officials to step up to the plate and take the high ground and say, this is what happened, this is my actual apology, I'm sorry for what happened, I've lost control of my number 10 team.
The anger is being felt in the Prime Minister's West London constituency, although voters here are divided on whether the PM is to blame for what happened in number 10.
If he's done it and he's been aware of it, then obviously, he needs to be held accountable.
He's the local MP for around here. Have you voted for him in the past?
Yes.
Would you vote for him again?
Well, I think we've got to see what comes out of what's happening now, isn't it?
It's just a party. I don't think, it's a massive problem.
It's disgusting, to be honest with you. Everybody abided by the rules, barring him.
I've voted Conservative in the past.
Would you now?
No, not while he's party leader. No way.
It's voters like that giving this man a boost. Polls suggest Labour's popularity is increasing as Sir Keir Starmer steps up his attacks on the PM.
He's got to go. And of course there's a party advantage in him going, but actually it's now in the national interest that he goes. So it's very important now that the Tory party does what it needs to do and gets rid of him.
The PM's not been seen since Wednesday.
Would you lie about the parties, Prime Minister?
When his MPs return to Westminster on Monday, the questions will keep coming as anger grows and his authority weakens.
David, the Tories have been living under the shadow of this scandal for many days now. Is there any sign the pressure is easing on the Prime Minister tonight?
Not at all, and in fact it's almost going in the opposite direction. I should say that a small handful of Tory MPs say they've been out and about in their constituencies today and have found lots of support for the Prime Minister. However, in the past hour, a sixth Tory, Tim Lawton, an MP in the southeast of England, has publicly called for the Prime Minister to go, and he says that he's working with others to impress that view on number 10. The reality is there will need to be many more publicly calling for the PM to go to seal his fate. But speaking to a number of backbenchers, I get the sense there are a number ready to call publicly for the PM to go, but they're either waiting for the report into Partygate, as it's becoming known, or for more MPs to speak out before they do. But making matters worse for the Prime Minister tonight, well, tomorrow's front page on The Telegraph has a picture of his wife, Carrie, breaking social distance guidance, with a friend as paper quotes a spokesperson saying she deeply regrets the momentary lapse of judgment. Drip, drip of allegations we've had this week, drip, drip of calls for him to go. The Prime Minister desperately needs to turn these taps off.
David, thank you. Tennis star Novak Djokovic's second attempt to remain in Australia goes to court within the next hour. His lawyers defeated a previous attempt to deport him, but tonight he's back in a Melbourne detention hotel after the country's immigration minister intervened. He said Australian anti-vaxxers could be encouraged by Djokovic's unvaccinated status, posing a risk of civil unrest. Ian Woods has the latest.
The tennis star's return to detention, a journey from his lawyer's office in Melbourne to the immigration hotel where he's already spent 4 nights, is the latest twist in a saga which has drawn international scrutiny.
It's not coming out. Move back, please. There's nothing else to see.
Novak Djokovic was confined to his room until 3 judges begin hearing his case shortly. Demonstrations by his fellow Serbs have resumed, and he also drew support from anti-vaccination protesters. And that's been cited as one of the reasons for his deportation. Australia's Immigration Minister Alex Hawke has argued Djokovic publicly expressed anti-vaccination sentiment and he may pose a risk to the good order of the Australian community. His lawyers called that irrational and different from the reasons he was originally told he couldn't stay in the country 10 days ago.
It has introduced a completely new ground that it has never mentioned before. If that was the government's concern, why didn't it raise that with Mr. Djokovic when it granted him a visa?
Back home in the Serbian capital, Belgrade, there's outrage at their hero's treatment. This headline calls the latest detention the last act of Djokovic's torture. It's dominated the build-up to the tournament.
Look, I think it's all been a little bit messy and I mean, that's probably an understatement.
It's, we're in Australia, it's their rules, but from what I know, if again, he has a valid exemption to be in this country and to do what he wants, then he should play.
He's such a great player, and it's kind of sad that some people might remember him in this way.
Australian Open will be a great Australian Open, with or without him. That's my point of view.
At stake is his chance to defend his Australian Open title and win a record-breaking 21st Grand Slam. Only a victory in court will allow him on court when the tournament starts on Monday. Ian Woods, ITV News.
Some breaking news tonight, and police in Texas are involved in an armed standoff with a man who has reportedly taken hostages at a synagogue. The FBI and specially trained armed police are at the scene in Colleyville, a small town near Dallas. The suspect is thought to have stormed the synagogue during a service and taken at least 4 people hostage. A huge volcanic eruption has sent tsunami waves to almost every corner of the Pacific Ocean tonight. From Japan to Chile and New Zealand to California, the waves spread out from the site of the explosion near the island of Tonga, which bore the brunt of the surge. Mark McQuillan reports.
A huge plume of ash, steam and gas rising up from the ocean near Tonga, the result of a huge eruption from an underwater volcano. So powerful that images of it were captured by satellites orbiting the Earth. While its impact was felt 500 miles away in Fiji.
It also caused a shock wave, which is an atmospheric pressure wave, which is well visible in the satellite footage. So that is something that we do not see every day. So that seems like it's a really large event, possibly one of the larger explosive eruptions of the century.
Not long after the blast, a tsunami hit Tonga, with waves crashing through streets and buildings, washing through homes and a church, forcing people to escape to higher ground and cutting off most communication to the outside world. One resident was able to make contact, saying she was okay, but concerned for people living in a low-lying area close by.
The huge rolling, cresting waves that seem to go in the direction of a very low-lying settlement. So this series of tsunamis will have given them a major problem. There's thousands of people up in that area on a narrow peninsula, so I'm very concerned for those people.
Tsunami warnings spread to places as far away as Australia, Japan, Chile and the west coast of America.
Get off the beach. This is a tsunami warning.
Authorities in California urging people to get off the beach just before flooding started there too. Back in Tonga, there will now be an agonising wait to discover the full scale of this disaster and the welfare of those caught up in it. Mark McQuillan, ITV News.
Lawyers for Prince Andrew and for the woman accusing him of sexual assault have revealed who they want to question as witnesses in the civil case. Virginia Giuffre's team want to speak to the Prince's former aide and to a woman who says she saw Andrew in a nightclub with a young girl around the time of the alleged offences, all of which he strongly denies. His legal team want to question Ms Giuffre's psychologist, telling the court she may suffer from false memories. In sport now, Manchester City are yet another step closer to retaining the Premier League title. The champions and runaway league leaders beat second-place Chelsea 1-0 today. It's a result that leaves City an almost insurmountable 13 points clear at the top. Chris Scudder was watching.
If Thomas Tuchel was frustrated that Chelsea had let Man City get 10 points clear of them at the top, his mood wasn't helped by his team having 0 attempts on goal in the first half. City did, but the man who cost them £100 million, Jack Grealish, missed another opportunity to pay a little bit back. Chelsea's Romelu Lukaku wasn't cheap either, and another big reputation was capped out by some excellent goalkeeping.
He's in for Chelsea, big save Edison.
Where's your European Cup taunted the Chelsea fans whose team beat City in last year's final, but the Premier League champions shut them up with a moment of magic.
Takes the shot! Oh, brilliant! Absolutely superb!
Kevin De Bruyne's 5th career goal against the team he once played for. How Chelsea must have wished they didn't let him go. His old club can now probably kiss the title goodbye.
And that's the full-time whistle.
12 wins in a row, 13 points clear at the top. Surely no one can stop City now. Chris Scudder, ITV News.
And finally, Britain's coastguards have been celebrating their 200th anniversary today.
The local coastguard studies the problem of rescuing passengers.
First founded solely to combat smuggling, the Coast Guard's mission has now shifted. It protects these days and saves lives around the UK's shorelines. More than 3,000 volunteers and 10 high-tech helicopters are on call 24 hours a day, even on the service's birthday. That's it from the Weekend Late team. The weather forecast is next. Bye-bye now.